This video is on project directories and file organization. File organization inside of After Effects and other softwares, certainly more graphics intensive softwares, is critical. So if you go into the general, in the modules, under general files, we have an AE project directory template. Go ahead and download that and unzip it. Now when you unzip it, it's going to give you a folder called My Project. Now this is in another folder for the overall class, but it's going to be titled My Project, and you'll simply rename that to whatever is appropriate. So for the animatic, you'll probably put in animatic assignment. When I go into that project folder, I have a series of folders already built for me. And I'm going to go through what each one of these is for and the way you need to organize your files. Now you're going to want to take notes on this part of the lesson. So I'm starting a new project, and there's my project. I'm going to retitle this Animatic. I go inside the folder, and the underscore AEP files, the reason I use an underscore is I can actually quickly hit the name column in the directory structure on Windows. You can do the same or similar on Macintosh operating systems. But it gives me that right at the top. It's very easy to toggle, and this is one of your main directories you're going to constantly be going in. You're going to put your Adobe After Effects files in here. And the After Effects file, it's similar to an HTML file. It doesn't, when I import a video or a still graphic or an audio file or whatever it might be, it doesn't embed that content into the AEP file. It simply creates a link to wherever that file might be on your hard drive. So this is my home office machine. You can see I have several hard drives, and if my content is on one of my working drives, call it the E drive, then it's going to look for that in the E drive at all times. And if I were to take this folder, Animatic, and bring it, say, to my office machine on campus, it will break the link from the files that were on my E drive because I didn't copy the E drive to bring to my office. So that's why we use this project directory. So all of your AEP files will go in here. Now, when you are finished with a project, typically we will render that project out and create a video from that. That video export is going to reside in this folder. For a lot of what we're going to do, especially with the incoming animatic assignment, you're going to be gathering and or creating audio content. And call it a series of clips, but you'll put all of your audio files, your waves, your MP3s, whatever formats they may be, all of your audio will belong in the audio import. You can see on the imports, there's several. I have a graphics import and an audio import. These are for dropping, you put your content, your assets into these folders, you then import them into After Effects. So that's where your audio assets go. I'm going to go down to graphics import first before covering documents. So graphics, those are going to be your Illustrator files, those are going to be your Photoshop files, JPEGs, PNGs, whatever content, static content you're importing into After Effects will go in here. And what you might want to do is create subfolders. So in here, I might, if I know I'm going to have a lot of assets for my project, and most of you will for your final projects, you might want to get ahead of the organization game by going Illustrator, Files. And I also like using underscores instead of spaces, because if I'm transferring this to different operating systems, that's going to carry over very well. So Illustrator files, and I'll create a new folder for Photoshop files. And I might put all my Photoshop files that I manipulate, add layers to, etc. in the Photoshop folder. And I'll then use my Illustrator folder, my Illustrator files folder, to put all my .ai content. I also might want to go another step and just put static images. So maybe I download some content from the internet, or I took some pictures using a camera. I'll put that in the static images. Maybe I didn't do any photo manipulations to them. Now that might be a bit much. In almost all cases, I am doing some kind of photo manipulation before I bring it into After Effects. So I'll usually just save things out as Photoshop files, and I'll typically skip any static images. But it really just depends, and I leave that up to you. But I should be able to quickly go into your graphics import folder and find every static asset that you have imported into your project. Video import. So video import is I shot some footage using my phone or my video camera, and there's, say, 10 clips to my project. I will take each of those clips, I will name them in a way I can understand quickly what each clip is about. One might be a character walking through a door. Another one might be of a dog running. It doesn't really matter, but I will then title them appropriately so I can quickly access them and understand what they are. What I don't want is, say, clip 01, clip 02, clip 03, unless it's in some kind of logical sequence that makes sense, which is rare. I can't even think of a situation off the top of my head during this video. But you're going to want to name them in a very intuitive way versus, say, E_001, E_002. That's pretty cryptic, and it's really hard for people to understand. So you want to be able to create your projects in a way that you can hand them off to another individual, and they can pick up where you left off very quickly without having to second guess or come to terms with some new, unique way of working that you've invented. So I'm finally getting to the Documents folder. Now this folder, After Effects is unaware of this folder. It is really for the team that's working on the project, team being you, myself, the graders, the TAs for this class. You're probably going to want to put your creative brief in there. You're going to probably want to put your storyboards in there, assuming this is the animatic. And once you get to, say, the final project, you might just start a new text document that is notes, update notes. So on this date, I made these changes. On this date, I made these other changes. I will talk more about that when I actually get to the animatic here in a moment. So that is the overall idea behind this folder structure. What it really does is it saves time in evaluating the work. It prevents you from losing work. That actually is about a 40% rate. My ground class, 40% of the students got zeros on their first submission of their animatic project or assignment, because they didn't use this folder structure. They decided to invent their own, and it is a requirement for this class. The reason why we handed out so many zeros on their initial submission was because if we had to sort out all of their content, 40 to 50 different students with up to an animatic, up to, say, 60 files per project, that would take us 40 or more hours to simply organize the work, and then another 20 hours to evaluate the work. we don't have those resources. We don't have those man or person hours to work with. Now, the ground class, I did give them a second submission without penalty after I reviewed all of the flaws that could happen. I will do the same with you, but do understand that you can prevent this from happening right off the start by using this directory structure appropriately. So, I'm going to minimize this. Now over here, let me bring this window into frame. Over here, I have my animatic folder that I actually am going to work with you on the lesson. And I'm going to just go over this and a few other ideas behind the project directory structure. So I open up the animatic, and you can see that here's the actual assignment that I was authoring. I put that in here just as a reference. I'm going to go back though. Here are my AEP files for the animatic that I created. Notice I'm working in iterations. So I worked a little bit. I titled my AEP file underscore 001. And then a little bit later I saved off because I didn't want to lose the content, but I don't want to, it's kind of a poor habit, especially in graphics, to save over the same file. Create a new file. So in this case I went save as, and I saved my current progress as 002. I work another 15 minutes, I'd save it as 003, another 15 minutes, 004. Maybe by the end of a larger project, I might have 100 AEP files. This saves you effort, energy, and headaches. It's not in the end, we're using technology, and technology will fail. It's not a matter of if it's going to fail, it's a matter of when it's going to fail. So let's say that my underscore 002 file became corrupt. Well, I could quickly go over to the 001 file, and I've only would have lost a few hours worth of work. Now, that's not the case in this case. Really, I would have only lost about 10 minutes worth of work. But I was just looking at the dates of creation here when I said that. So it's a very strong iterative workflow by just saving off in versions and saving often. You can see these are very small files. They aren't embedding the content in there. They're just referencing the information that you're working with. So they're very small. You can have 100 of these and it's not going to fill up a disk at all. It's also a nice thing that After Effects is going to put all of the autosaves into a separate folder. So these are kind of a backup workflow as well. So those are my AEP files for the animatic. I don't have any video export because I don't need it for this project, and you won't either. But I do need a lot of audio import. So for this project, you can see these are all the audio files that I used for my project. I basically downloaded and created audio files, separate files, MP3s in this case, and there's a M4, excuse me, that I recorded off of my phone, and I put them all in here before loading them up into After Effects. Now my documents, you can see I've placed my creative brief inside this folder as well as my storyboard, and we'll open those up in the next video. But that quickly allows me, my graders, my TAs to go in, and let's say that you built your creative brief, but you realize while creating the storyboard and or the animatic that part of your creative brief needs to change to make your life easier, to create a more streamlined evaluation system. Go ahead, update your creative brief. It's usually just changing your message or maybe just a color from your color swatches within your creative brief. When you do that, we will be able to look back and say, oh, well, they changed their message entirely, but they updated their creative brief. We will go back and improve the grade that you received on your creative brief. Same with your storyboards. Now your storyboards are going to be more locked. That's a little bit more labor intensive generally, but you may realize once you create the animatic that your storyboard needs updating, and if you create just a simple text file, let me see here. I just created a new text document. I'm going to call this updates. And I open that up. And today, what is today's date? Today is 3/28. Changed balloon graphic to red. Updated the creative brief and revised storyboard. Then maybe, and I'm going to change the date. Let's say that was 3/25. And now it's 3/27. And here I added videos of dogs running. I was going to say created, but I imported. Vector logos, etc. So really you're creating an update log, a log file that my graders, my TAs can quickly go through and say, oh, they did this. Then we can look and see what changes you may have made in here and or any of these other folders here, and we'll give you credit for those. It's our goal to find ways to award you points. Really what we're trying to do is check off a competency or objective for this class. So if you show us that you can accomplish a certain competency, then we want to give you credit for it. But it's not always easy finding what those competencies are. I shouldn't say that. It isn't always easy finding out where you are demonstrating knowledge of a certain competency. So if you give us this sort of these sort of documents in the documents folder, it's going to be much easier for us to give you credit, and it's to be the credit that you've earned. So help us help you. The graphics import. In this case, I used a Jeep logo and I created a layered Photoshop file that I'll cover in the next video. But those are they're my static graphics that I'm using inside of the project, and they go in the graphics import. Because I only have 2 static assets for this whole project, I didn't need to subdivide this into folders, and this is simple enough, so that works. Video import. I don't have any video import for the animatic assignment. We're simply working with the static graphics and the audio to create our final project. Now I also have a working folders. That is not part of the project, but it's a habit I have that I do when I'm working in 3D, when I'm working in high-end compositing for television commercials, video games, or feature film. But in here are really just in-between steps. I downloaded the Jeep logo. I just did a search for vector Jeep logo vector drawing. And most of the time when you look at vector drawings on the internet, they're going to be in SVG format. After Effects does not import SVG as a file format. So I had to open this up into Illustrator and save it off as an Illustrator file so I could import that directly into After Effects. And that's why it's in the working folder. It's not an asset that I use in my final project, but I want to have the things that I downloaded and just an area where I've worked to assemble things together so that I can refer back to it later if I need to. When I submit this project, I won't include this. I will basically move these documents outside of these three, this folder and these two documents. I'll move this outside of this folder, and then I'll zip up my animatic folder and then submit it for the class. So I hope that helps you understand a little bit more about the project directory structure. It's critical that you understand how to use this and that you obey the rules that I've created for this class to streamline it and allow us to put our effort and time into helping you accomplish the goals of your project.